You're listening to the I Love You Keep Going podcast with George Haas. For more information, please visit our website at www.mettagroup.org. That's www.mettagroup.org.
So, welcome everybody. This is I Love You Keep Going. It is Thursday, October 30th, 2025. It's 7:36 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And we get different questions that come in about what we should talk about, and what we've been getting lately is a few people wanting the conversation about meditation and spiritual bypassing. Spiritual bypassing, if you don't know the term, means using meditation practice to avoid any of the negative experiences of life and go into a kind of Pollyanna-ish mode of operation. We don't have too much of that around here because we teach metta Vipassana, and the whole concept of metta Vipassana is that you use the development of positive practices as a refuge when the investigatory side of the practice, the Vipassana side of the practice, heats up so much that you need to back away from it. Is that making sense? In the attachment world, of course, what we're also talking about is the experience of the positive system versus the experience of the negative system. Two different systems, and they both need to be addressed. We need to practice in a way that we pull down the intensity of the negative states. But then for most of us who are at least attending to attachment repair, we also need to develop positive states. And we do need to investigate the quality of our experiences of positivity. So, for instance, if you grew up in my family, the way that we tended to regulate intensely positive states was by generating negative states. And so if you had something that was really exciting and it was too difficult to manage, you would then move into some kind of catastrophizing as a way of regulating the positive state. So we also need to examine how intense of a positive experience we can manage without the mind shifting into a regulating strategy, and then paying attention to what regulating strategy we're using so that we don't inflict negative states onto positive states as the way of regulating them. We want to be able to have really strong positive experiences without the need to regulate them. But if we do we need to regulate them with something that's positive and supportive of maintaining the state. If you engage in meditation practice as you get toward the deeper end of the experiences that come from practice, what you find is that you inhabit the positive states mostly, but they're not the result of bypassing the negative states. They're the result of being able to hold all states without needing to get away from them particularly. So it's a different thing. Shinzen used to say that the most pernicious trap in all of meditation was the intentional generation of bliss. And he was, I think, mainly referring to bliss states that are associated with high concentration states. You get into the third Vipassana jhana, for instance, which is an intensely blissful state, and you just hang out there. And then that precludes you doing any kind of investigation on the insight side. You just get blissed out. So you do, in some ways, after you engage in practice over a period of time and unhook a lot of this stuff and work through a lot of the karma that you've gathered over this time, this lifetime, and perhaps tens of thousands of previous lifetimes. Geez, that looks like a lot of karma to work through. Uh, you get to the place where it's very lively and uh, beautiful, really. It's dazzlingly beautiful. But the negative states appear in that same way. So you haven't bypassed them, you haven't avoided them. There is that natural inclination to avoid pain and seek pleasure. But at the cost of unconsciousness is not worth it, really. Part of this then is also how do you manage it so that you can tolerate the negative states enough that you go into them, that you don't seek to avoid them. And that's why we mainly focus on a metta vipassana approach, an integrated approach. Usually, when we teach metta vipassana, we start out on the metta side, the loving kindness side. We begin by developing the capacity for strong positive states. The way that we know ourselves and the way that we know the world in Buddhist thought, the world is other people. The way we know ourselves and we know other people is by creating these working models of them. And working models are really a collection of gists or mind moments that have been remembered. And when we activate a sense of self, what we're doing is activating an array of sense experiences which go off in the body and go off in the mind. And we recognize that pattern of sensation that arises from that as ourselves, and we construct working models of other people. And so when the working model of other people go off, it is in some sense the embodied feeling sense of them, and then the cognitive narratives that we know. So the tactile sense of the body, the emotional sense of the body, and also the narratives that we generate of other people. You've probably heard me say this a million times, but we don't have the capacity to make a recording of what actually happens. That's not what memory is. Memory is an activation of these gists and a record of what the meaning of the experience we're remembering was. This is sometimes hard to wrap your head around, but when you're listening to the mind replay a conversation that you had with someone else, you're creating that conversation in the moment. You're not remembering a conversation that you've had. You're remembering how you think people talk, and you're remembering the meaning of the conversation that you're remembering, and then you're creating in the moment the dialogue that goes along with that. Which is why sometimes you can remember things in such a different way than somebody else remembers them, because they are also not remembering what happened. They're remembering what it meant to them based on their definitions, and you're remembering what it meant to you based on your definitions. And that's why when you go to the videotape, you both argue that the videotape is wrong. That's not what happened. I remember this clearly, which you do, but not what happened, what it meant to you in the moment. Of course, you are not remembering in the present moment what the body mind was, what state it was in the moment that the experience happened. So you don't even have that to uh, go along with. And if you remember something from the past, let's say you remember something from 5 years old, you don't have a 5-year-old body to play the gists in so that you could actually create an accurate response to it. And if you've ever remembered it before, you have the original memory and the time you remembered it re-remembered in one memory. And if you've remembered it 1,000 times, uh, the experience of whatever it is you're remembering also includes every time you remembered it and what state the body mind was in every time you remembered it. So it can be wildly off, is what I'm trying to get at. Or it could be quite accurate. It depends on all of these conditions. Would it?
George,
Hi.
the question is about meaning. I know we use the word, what meaning do you make of something? Um, so it's not about the positive or negative emotion that, I was passing by the trees today and then I saw the fall color leaves. It it the positive emotion I could see big in my body and my mind, but I'm not sure when you say meaning, is it a story that I should be aware of what I have when I see that scene?
I can give you an example, which you may also have heard because it fits so well. Uh, um, I was coming out of the Santa Monica Meditation Center, which is on the alley between 10th and 11th in Colorado, where it was. And so I'd been sitting for, hours, and so I was very sensitive. And so the change between the quiet of the alley and the traffic on uh, Colorado Boulevard was affronting. So it was a little off base. And then a turquoise and white two-tone 1957 T-Bird took the corner pretty sharply. So my attention was drawn to the tire squeal, and then the sunlight flashed off of the grill, which is pretty chromy, and I was immediately flooded by this warm, emotional state. But I don't really like 57 T-Birds. It's not a car that I really relate to. And I was quite surprised by the intensity of the warmth of the emotional response. It was not really what happens. And so I closed my eyes and I saw on the mental screen my grandmother's 53 turquoise DeSoto, right? And so that when my mind went to categorize the car that it saw, it attached it to a memory thread that included my grandmother's car. And all of the emotion that I felt from my grandmother flooded the present moment, in addition to what was actually happening. And so that was the experience that I was having. The meaning of my relationship with my grandmother and the time that we had spent in that car attached itself to a car that I didn't know and didn't care about. And could have been, it was so disjar. I mean, it was not disjarring. It was so out of context that it caused me to investigate it. Plus, I had just come out of sitting all day, so I was sensitive to be able to do it. Um, but imagine that is happening in every moment. You, when the undifferentiated sensing experience gets to the top of the queue and is compared to the perceptual database, if there's an entry in there that matches enough that you want to define the present moment in relationship to that whole track of meaning attaches, and you are in the present moment, and you are also in all of the associations to that kind of experience in the present moment. Is that answering your question?
So, are you saying that meaning has to have an association with the past story?
No, if you don't have something in the database that is close enough that it would be that category of meaning, then the imagination kicks in and defines it in the present moment. So
I
if you
was
have
wondering if it's my awareness that I need to build to see why I liked something,
right.
or is it the
Well,
imagine?
you
I
see,
don't understand imagination.
imagination,
It was just nature. It was just trees and the color of the leaves.
right. And so what is the association to that? It was just leaves. How do you know it's a leaf? It was just trees. How do you know it's a tree? What was the temperature? What was the sunlight like? And how far can you go back and remember what that was like? Uh, uh, a particular quality of sunlight that you really liked, a particular quality of landscape that you really liked. What are all of those associations?
It's always remembering.
Uh, the it's a memory of an experience, unless you don't have one, and then the imagination kicks in to define it. Um, so um, now, one of the ways that you can look at that closely in a meditative way is with auditory, exterior auditory, so the soundscape around you. What happens when you hear a sound that you don't know what it is? Then what you're watching is the imagination trying to solve the puzzle of it and assigning meaning to it. When I worked in the film industry, I had a post-production company 25 years ago. Um, we had a library of sound effects, which I think had 100,000 discrete sounds in it. And so part of the meditation that I would do is they were all CDs, right? I'd pull a CD out and slap it into the recorder, and then we would sit there and meditate on auditory space, trying to figure out what it was that we were actually hearing. And, the self experience is a half a second behind, and the mind is fast. It usually solves the puzzle of what it is that you're hearing, and it enters into conscious awareness as a sound of something. It's only when you can't solve the puzzle of the sound and it lasts longer than a half a second that you can watch the mind attempting to solve the sound. And then you see it. It fixates and unfixates, fixates and unfixates. This is a car door. No, it's a ladder. No, it's a cupboard. No, until it settles on something. And then it's fixed, and that's what it is. And that happens. But the meaning aspect is also something that can happen. There's a lot of issues with the meaning thing, right? Because our attention is directed toward things that have meaning and away from things that don't have meaning. So it's very likely that you're going to only have the experience of the outside world that's been selected by things that mean something to you. We don't do a general neutral survey. We focus on things that we like. And if we find ourselves in an environment that isn't filled with things we like, we don't like the environment because it's not rich in meaning for us, right? And so we look for a different environment than the one that we're in. Now, we might say, this is boring, or I don't like this color, but it is also that hierarchy of preferences that we have. And we're always going toward the top end of the hierarchy. One of the things that we do in meditation, of course, is begin to investigate what those hierarchies are so that we can allow the range of experience that we can have, that we're not subject to the attention always being driven toward valued objects and meaning, away from things that don't contain meaning for us. Um, that when you're really unconscious about that, you really focus away from everything except the stuff that you like, which means you have very distorted points of view about what's actually happening. Is that making sense? And where we want to get to is this place where everything can be included in our perception of what's happening. We don't need to be drawn. We're not craving anything. We're not aversive to anything. We're just really we're able to be completely present for what's happening. These meanings develop over time, and some of them are pretty biological. I had a lot of physical abuse. Abuse. I had a lot of physical touch, painful physical touch. Let's put it in a completely neutral term, hilariously, from mainly from my mother. But my dad was also quite harming. And so I have an incredibly exaggerated startle response, which I haven't really been able to do much about over my course of life. Dan Brown used to say to me that he could help me overcome my extremely exaggerated. I mean, the startle response is enough for me to switch half a lane in traffic. If a car comes zooming by, I'm over half a lane without even noticing. He said, so I said to him, "Oh yeah, right. How are you going to get me out of this exaggerated startle response?" And he says, "Well, I'm going to get two pans, and we're going to sit in a dark room, and I'm just going to bang them randomly until." until you don't startle so easily. I never took him up on it. So, the conditioning is amazing, how it is that all happens so fast and we're just living in the meaning, right? So what we want to do is really examine in each moment the meaning that we're making in case we've made the wrong meaning, and then we have the opportunity to make another one, right? Because we're making it. It's not intrinsic. It's not continuous. It's not solid.
Sorry, one just last comment. I realized, yeah, it's very, very obvious in slightly negative emotions. The meaning is always almost there. Um, but it's hard for me to really change it. I can see it, but I'm not sure if I can change it. Because as awareness, I can just watch it, but I cannot be, because that would be a lie, or that would be.
Well, I think the main way to change it is, or at least the way that has been the most helpful to me, has been the ideal parent figure work. Because what you do is you come into the negative experience that you keep making, right? You're assigning the meaning. So if you're assigning a negative meaning to something, you're making that in the way that we make reality. And then you layer around that positive alternatives to meaning. It is true that you can't really uproot the negative conditioning by extracting it in some way. But it is true that you can layer in around it positive alternatives, which the mind then uses to create meaning instead of using the old one.
Is there an example?
Um, well, the I wrote a book called The Lower Manhattan Dormitory Effect. It took 12 years to write. And it was very hard to finish it because the anxiety of finishing it was so great. and it played out in ideas of what would happen if I finished the book and put it out. And the belief that I had, even though I thought consciously that it was ridiculous that I would think that, I still thought it, but also felt it, that I was really frightened by people harming me if I put the book out. And so I spent quite a bit of time working on that so that I would expect something else from putting the book out. And the more that I was able to shift the anticipation of the book coming out and being well received, the less the anxiety was. And when I got to a place where I really thought I could put the book out and people would be happy that I had made the book, then I was able to finish it. Is that making sense? Now,
Imagining, you said?
in the IPF, right? Imagining, in the exploration aspect of that. Now, what that conditioning was, of course, was uh, um, just my child experience of what would happen when I explored authentically in childhood. Uh, I grew up in a family system where you couldn't be happy because my mother was so unhappy. She was retaliatory. And the last thing you wanted to do was let my dad know what mattered to you because he took such pleasure in destroying it. So that was actually the child experience of that is what was happening. But I was an adult trying to do adult things. Um, you know, both parents already dead, already, in the crypt. They weren't going to do anything, right? But that didn't matter to the way that my mind habitually made the reality of it. In doing the IPF, I then was able to make the next book in 2 years, which translates into I had to push through 10 years of terrible anxiety to get this book finished, right? Which I didn't have to do the second time. Not that I had better tools for regulating the anxiety, it just stopped coming up. So it stopped interfering. When you have to overcome anxiety in order to engage in your exploration, it often consumes all of the energy that you might use to explore. And then once you get through the anxiety, there's no energy left to explore. And so changing the expectation of what you think would happen. And I can tell you that most of the time, what you're going to have to deal with from the world is complete indifference. But that shouldn't be stop you from doing it, right? It's really when you're talking about primary exploration, it's the thing that matters to you that you're doing, not the thing, the response that you want necessarily from other people. Is that making sense? So how do you recondition that or develop alternative meanings so that you're not constantly stuck making the same old meanings? Part of each of these episodes of meaning is your expectation of what will happen. And if you are always anticipating a negative outcome to what happens, you become less and less inclined to actually do it. It's one way of avoiding the pain of it. But if you anticipate a really good outcome, totally unrealistic most of the time, right? A really good outcome, just a totally ideal outcome where everything goes exactly the way that you wanted it to go. It doesn't stop you from doing it regardless of what the outcome is, right? In fact, you're happy to do it because you're anticipating something positive. Then if something positive or so happens, you can go with it. If something neutral happens, you can go with it. If something negative happens, you can respond to it. But you haven't, I like to say, self-rejected, which is really one of the great problems in exploration, is you size it up and decide that it's not worth doing because of what you anticipate the outcome to be. But that just means you don't engage in the exploration, and so you deprive yourself of meaning that you may or may not have to, right? That's the thing. The self-rejection is a terrible response, but it's a very common response to adverse conditions early in life. We just assume that that's what's going to happen, and so we don't do it. So in some sense, the opposite of all of that is this fully engaging in it. I like to say the solution to all of this is to do your very best in everything that you do, without exception. So if you're doing the dishes, you do a really good job doing the dishes. If you're doing the laundry, you do a really good job doing the laundry. If you take big risks in your exploration, if big risks in your creative life, you do your very best and then see what happens. And a lot of us, because of the way that we grew up, we hedge the bet. We don't do our best, so that if it doesn't go well, we have an excuse. Well, I didn't do my best, that's why it turned out like this. How would it be if I had done my absolute very best and it still didn't turn out? Could be bad, right? But we don't need the hedge. We really do need to just go for it as good as we can, as best we can, and then see what happens. So much of what life is this process of living. And there is a great satisfaction that comes from doing your very best in everything, regardless of what the outcome is. That making sense? Fully engage and remain equanimous. I love the metaphor of the surfer on the 100-foot wave. Do you know that image? You see this giant wave and this little speck of a surfer stuck in the middle of it. and they, uh, as they zoom in, they look completely still, stuck in the middle of the wave. But as you get closer, you see they're constantly moving, constantly shifting, constantly balancing, trying to stay in this thing as they're flying along with this monster of a wave behind them that could just fall, crush them. That's the way, that's the metaphor of fully engaging. Susie.
When you said before about meaning, and you talk about the body mind, and you talked about like how you anticipated something, and it was a feeling of anxiety, and I'm
Right.
just interested in the idea of meaning and how much of that is thinking and how much of that is embodied and to do with the emotional experience, and just the idea of walking in nature and the associations. And yeah, I'm guessing it's not so much thinking meaning necessarily. It's like an experience type of meaning. Is that
Right. If it's not embodied, it doesn't really have a big oomph. It's a thought, comes and goes. But so in breaking it down, using the kind of Shinzen way of breaking things down, it's a lot of things happening at once. There's the physical body, the emotion of the physical body, external sight space, external sound space, plus internal sight, internal thinking and auditory thinking. All of them together in concert create the experience of meaning. And if you zoom into any one of the aspects of it, and one of the ways that Vipassana works, of course, is you break everything apart. So when you're having overwhelming experiences, you can just pull everything apart and watch it without the intensity, because it isn't until they come all together that it creates that full intensity, that full aliveness that we have. In the Tibetan way of doing it, you zoom out into awareness and hold the whole space of you, the activity of you in awareness, which is the way of balancing what can be overwhelming when you get trapped in the limited identity and you have the experience of it as you, right? As soon as you come out of the experience of this is me and this is happening to me, of course, then you're in the elements that create the intensity of meaning, and it's not usually overwhelming, and it can get quite intense, and still there's enough equanimity there that you can have the intensity of it.
It reminds me, you might appreciate this analogy. Sometimes I say to people, work that I do when they're dealing with too much overwork, like being overwhelmed, it's like maybe you could think of it of this movie in your mind, and it's like being in a scary movie and the music's going and everything's very intense. But if you just stand up and walk to the side of the, like down the aisle, like to the side of the cinema, then it immediately, even though you're seeing what's happening, you're hearing the music and you're still watching the screen, the intensity just decreases. So maybe you can like use that analogy to cope with those intense moments. It's a good one.
Yeah. Good.
Cool. Thank you.
The another way to talk about spiritual bypassing is as a filtering mechanism. We're getting close to the end, so I want to try and wrap it up. In an open way of relating, you're simply allowing everything in that needs to come in. Nothing's being filtered out. And in these strategies for limiting experience, you filter out the stuff that you don't want to experience. An example of that from the attachment side of the conversation would be a dismissing person who suppresses awareness of emotion and suppresses awareness of the attachment system. So they don't have a conscious experience of that. It doesn't mean that they don't have those experiences, it just means that they don't enter into consciousness. So one way to think of spiritual bypassing is really restricting what information you allow into consciousness so that you deal with. Is that making sense? What kind of practice would you like to do today? Loving kindness, insight, ideal parent figure. Three. Three is winning. Any last minute votes? All right, let's do some ideal parent figure protocol. So go ahead and settle in. At least a thumbs up. Um, well, we're almost to the end of this year, surprisingly. Halloween is tomorrow, or today for some people. And then we have a level 2 that's just started on Tuesday afternoons, 4:30 to 6:30. And the second class is on November 4th, and we do close the enrollment for that after the second class. So if you want to jump on that, that's going to close next week. On the 15th of November, we have every year I do what I call family archaeology, which is a half day retreat, which is really talking about how to go home and take a look at what's actually happening in the family system and explore your attachment conditioning by watching people express their attachment conditioning. Then on the 28th is Kaleidoscope. This is around the time of Thanksgiving. So Friday morning, in case you want to check in. We're going to have a virtual retreat this year, starting on the 29th. There will also have a kaleidoscope on the 26th, the day after Christmas, if you need to decompress. So you can do your Thanksgiving decompression and then your Christmas decompression. And then starting on December 29th through the 2nd of January from 7 a.m. until 4 in the afternoon, we're going to do the whole of level 2 in 5 days. So if you want an immersive experience of the whole attachment thing, come to that. I did it the summer before last in Poland in 15 days, and it worked really well, really as an immersive experience. And so I'm curious whether we can do it in such a short thing. And then we're into the new year. I have a level 1 starting on January 10th for the rest of the month. So that's what's coming up. I really appreciate your practice. Happy to see you. And I offer the teaching freely, but if you are resourced and able to make a donation, that's also appreciated. Help support me and also the work Mettagroup is doing. There's a link on the website to do that. Hope to see you soon. Bye. And Susie, if you stick around. Bye.
Bye.
What's a good time?
Um, my calendar really is all over the place, but I think we worked out that 10:30 a.m. is. I should have done this
On what
before.
day?
No. What days are you free? Because honestly, I have different things on every day. I am a bit all over the place. So bear with me.
I have a 10:30 on the 5th
of okay, so
November.
that's the Wednesday. Look, that should work fine. Let me just double check. 10:30 Pacific Daylight or Standard
Standard at that point.
Time? Okay, sorry, I'm just having difficulty getting myself organized here. So, Melbourne Pacific Standard Time. So it's 10:30 a.m. It's 9:30. Okay, yeah. I just went to one place. Here we go. No, that's not showing me. That's showing me now. Here we go. Pacific. Oh, it says Pacific Daylight. Did you say Pacific Daylight or Standard?
It's standard because we're switching on Sunday from daylight to standard.
Okay, so let's make that one 10:30 is, and I'll have to put the date in to make sure. Does it have the date?
We're still in
I'll tell
daylight
you
time
what,
now.
it's probably fine. It'll be fine anyway. It won't make any difference an hour. And when you invite me, it will convert. Me and numbers and time, I really struggle with this stuff, but I know that it will be fine. It's 4:30.
Okay.
Oh, hang on. It says it's 4:30 a.m. I'm sure we
Yeah.
worked out that 10:30 a.m. would be good. Can you do later in the day?
Say that
Like
again.
can you do later in the day?
I have noon or 12:30.
I can do that. I might be a little sleepy, but that's okay. It's 6:30
What
in the
time
morning,
is
but that's
that?
fine. No, that's fine. 6:30 a.m. is fine. I'll be up.
But I also have 4 p.m.
Oh, yeah, that's even better. Yeah, that's perfect. That's 10 o'clock at my time. Maybe that's what time we did it. Memory.
So
So 4
p.m.
p.m. your time, which is 10 a.m. the next day. So that would be the 6th for me.
Right. Okay.
Beautiful. And will you send me a link for that, George, or do we use this link?
I just sent it.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so you've got my email there. Great. Great.
Did you
And
get
that
it?
is the Thursday the 6th at 10. I'm just going to stick it in here. George, that is on the, was it 10:30 or 10 o'clock? I've just said that, didn't I? Bear with me. I'll
I
just
have
do
it. You could have either, but I put it at 10.
10. 10's good. Yeah, that's what I've got too. I'll just see if it's come into my email. I don't have them open. We'll just take a jiffy. Okay. You know what? It's making me verify, George. I'll email you if I don't get it
Okay.
because it's making me verify my account. I haven't been in there
Oh,
today, so
let me
all good.
set it up so that it has.
Do you want to just tell me the email address just to make sure? Would that be a good idea?
Susie at
Yeah. It's Lilo,
IL
Lilo. Yeah. Yeah.
lilowellness.com.au.
Beautiful. Okay, fantastic. I'm sure that will come through.
All right.
Thanks, George.
All right. Great.
I'll see
See
you
you
then.
later.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.